Good evening, dear all. We are Group 6. Our topic is metaphysics. Meta means beyond, outside universe. Metaphysics is the study of origins which asks why we are here and what is our purpose in life. Metaphysics is the foundation of philosophy. Without an explanation or an interpretation of the world around us, we would be helpless to deal with reality. Metaphysics is the study of the basic structures of reality, being and nothingness, time and eternity, freedom and determination, mind and body, thinghood and personhood, space and time, supreme beings and nature. Metaphysics is sometimes referred to as first philosophy because it examines questions that lie at the heart of many other areas of philosophy. For example, do people have rights? Is a question from social-political philosophy. A metaphysician would say that in order to answer this question, we must first ask, what is a person? Now let's talk about the types of metaphysics. So, the first point we will talk about is materialism. Materialism is a form of philosophical monism which holds matter to be the fundamental substance in nature, and all things, including mental states and consciousness, are results of material interactions. According to philosophical materialism, mind and consciousness are byproducts or epiphenomena of material processes. Materialism is a tradition of thought in which all things that exist are made up of matter in some way. To update this theory, it might be restated that all existence is made up of energy in some form. Matter is a form of energy. All things that exist are made of energy, atoms, molecules, forces and other entities that consist of energy. There are no non-physical or non-material existence. Highly materialistic people believe that owning and buying things are necessary means to achieve important life goals, such as happiness, success and desirability. However, in their quest to own more, they often sideline other important goals. Here we give an example of materialism, like I want to eat, there may be a sudden hunger, etc., and when I want to eat is the appearance of a decision that can satisfy my hunger needs, such as drawing cakes to satisfy my hunger. This substance and the substance-like thing of material consciousness appeared in the rice I cooked. The next we want to introduce is idealism. Idealism is the metaphysical view that associates reality to ideas in the mind rather than to material objects. It lays emphasis on the mental or spiritual components of experience, and renounces the notion of material existence. When you're idealistic, you dream of perfection, whether in yourself or other people. For example, you might have the idealistic goal of bringing an end to childhood poverty in the world. The adjective ideal describes someone whose plans or goals of helping others are lofty, grand, and possibly unrealistic. Idealism asserts that reality is akin to ideas, thought, mind, or selves rather than to material forces. Idealism is a way of interpreting human experience and the world which places emphasis on mind as in some way prior to matter. Just as materialism emphasizes matter, so idealism stresses the mind. This may be abstract and hard to understand, so here is an example to explain idealism. Catching the wind and the shadows, imagining. If a subjective idealist sees a drop of dew on a blade of grass in the morning, he likes to say that it must have rained last night. If he sees the grass growing in the direction of the sun at noon, he likes to say that it must be the result of wind blowing. Subjective idealists like George Berkeley are anti-realists in terms of a mind-independent world. However, not all idealists restrict the real or the knowable to our immediate subjective experience. Objective idealists make claims about a trans-empirical world, but simply deny that this world is essentially divorced from, or ontologically prior to the mental. Thus, Plato and Gottfried Leibniz affirm an objective and knowable reality transcending our subjective awareness, a rejection of epistemological idealism, but propose that this reality is grounded in ideal entities, a form of metaphysical idealism. Nor do all metaphysical idealists agree on the nature of the ideal. For Plato, the fundamental entities were non-mental abstract forms, while for Leibniz they were proto-mental and concrete monads. Next, it's theism. Theism is broadly defined as the belief in the existence of a supreme being or deities. In common parlance, or when contrasted with deism, the term often describes the classical conception of God that is found in monotheism, also referred to as classical theism, or gods found in polytheistic religions. a belief in God or in gods without the rejection of revelation as is characteristic of deism. Theism is subdivided into monotheism and polytheism. Monotheism is the belief that there is only one deity, an all-supreme being that is universally referred to as God. Monotheism characterizes the traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and elements of the belief are discernible in numerous other religions. Moreover, it is not the oneness but the uniqueness of God that counts in monotheism. One God is not affirmed as the logical opposite of many gods but as an expression of divine might and power. Polytheism is the belief in multiple deities. Polytheists do not always worship all the gods equally. They can be henotheists, specializing in the worship of one particular deity, or cathenotheism, worshipping the different deities at different times. An example of deism is Islam. Islam followed in the footsteps of its Abrahamic predecessors by emphasizing a personalized God called Allah. This God is considered to be the same God talked about by Moses and Jesus. Despite a generally accepted sentiment in Islam that Allah transcends shape and form, several passages in the Quran describe Allah using anthropomorphic language, claiming that he can see and hear, among other abilities. Furthermore, the so-called 99 names of Allah reflect decidedly anthropomorphic qualities. Intense debate in Islamic theological scholarship over such passages has arrived at the conclusion that if God does see and hear, however, he does so in a manner far superior to comparable human sensations. As in the other Abrahamic faiths, God is seen as one, indivisible, and is in all things, yet is also completely separate from humanity. Allah is typically described as incontrovertibly transcendent. Going out of monotheism and polytheism and deism is atheism. Atheism is commonly understood as non-acceptance or rejection of deism in the broadest sense of theism, i.e. non-acceptance or rejection of belief in God or gods. The claim that the existence of any deity is unknown or unknowable is agnosticism. Atheism is not an affirmative belief that there is no God, or does it answer any other question about what a person believes. It is simply a rejection of the assertion that there are gods. Atheism is too often defined incorrectly as a belief system. To be clear, atheism is not a disbelief in gods or a denial of gods, it is a lack of belief in gods. Older dictionaries define atheism as a belief that there is no God. Clearly, theistic influence taints these definitions. The fact that dictionaries define atheism as there is no God betrays the mono-theistic influence. Without the mono-theistic influence, the definition would at least read there are no gods. Here's the example of atheism. Science begins to undermine religion. In the second half of the 19th century, the theory of evolution, put forward by Charles Darwin, and other scientific discoveries, undermined the value of religion as a way of explaining the nature and existence of the world. The philosopher Thomas Hobbes had noted even earlier, in 1651, that Moses could not actually have written all the books of the Bible that were attributed to him. Other theologians began to work with the ideas of Hegel to portray religion, and religious stories and beliefs in general, as symbolic ways of demonstrating truths about the spiritual life of humankind. Literary analysis of the text began to cast great doubt on the Bible itself as a reliable historical document. The German, D.F. Strauss, said in 1835 that the New Testament stories about Christ should not be interpreted as literally true, but as a dress of religious symbolism clothing the life of a Jewish teacher. At the end of the 19th century, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche (1844–1900) announced that God was dead, and that humanity had killed him. Nietzsche said that it was no longer possible to believe in the Christian God. Modern people, he thought, did not really believe in God anymore, and it was this unbelief that had killed off God. This had serious ethical consequences. Western society's entire moral code was based on Judeo-Christian ethics, and sooner or later people would realize that if they no longer believed in God, they could not live by a moral code that was based on God. Nietzsche wasn't just proclaiming the death of God, but something even more radical. For Nietzsche, there was nothing left to believe in, certainly not God, but not even any external world that might provide a source of meaning and purpose for humanity. Nietzsche was particularly critical of Christianity. He thought that it was not only false but depraved and corrupt, a contradiction of life. Next is about agnosticism. Agnosticism is the view or belief that the existence of God, of the divine or the supernatural, is unknown or unknowable. Another definition provided is the view that Human reason is incapable of providing sufficient rational grounds to justify either the belief that God exists or the belief that God does not exist. Here is a easy to understand example of agnosticism. Phil was so agnostic about the courses he would take next semester that he simply went with the first few his counselor suggested. At last, its relation between God, nature, and human. Nature is a gift of God to humans, and we have the responsibility to care for nature. In the secular version of stewardship, this responsibility is towards future generations rather than to God. We have this responsibility towards God. God breathes God's Spirit into humanity in a way that separates us from animals and God's other creation, which God speaks into existence. Humanity's unique role, God's unique role for humanity, also sets us apart from the rest of creation. God gave humanity a role in God's creation. We are the caretakers of God's world. From a sustainable marketing perspective, the fundamental relationship between humans and nature is the ongoing exchange and change of resources, the service nature and humans provide to each other. We tend to consume as if there is an unlimited supply of resources, but we live in a world of non-renewable resources. It is not a new intention for humans to seek to understand the mechanisms of the universe. Throughout history, humankind has located itself in various centers of life known to exist and has also sought the presupposed life after death, which can neither be experienced nor conquered by humans, except through mythical heroes such as Hercules, Odysseus, Gilgamesh, and so on. This actually means that the beginning of everything is in God, and the end of everything is again dependent on God's will. Since everything begins with God and is at God's center, it is possible to feel the presence of God and to see God in every material that exists. God is everywhere and in everything. God is the life giver and life taker, who can transform into anything. Once you saved the world by taking the form of a fish. Now you have saved me by taking the form of a fish. Thank you, thank you. God is Vishnu, God is Father, and God is Allah. God is also nature, and thus nature is God. Whatever you do in nature will have a resonance, because the God who is the object and subject of everything is essentially karma itself. God can be anywhere, anytime, and in any form. From both the deductive and the inductive senses, the voyage of anything descending either from God or, conversely, from life on earth, the spherical voyage of any person or anything, both circulate in God. Like the form of algae that through interconnectedness creates a chemical chain, anything in this universe, planet, or nature is connected to each other, and thus to the Creator. And while names and religious practices can differ, the veins ultimately link pi to God. Therefore, the mechanisms of nature are cycled by the universe. The universe is driven by God, and He/she is omnipotent, omniscient, and ever ready everywhere, from every single corner to every single atom that forges the universe. All things are in God, or the world is God's body. Then humans of both genders from all ethnic groups and social classes are included in cosmic salvation. God shares all human oppression and suffering, and all humans share in the life of God, which is liberating and enhancing the universe. Okay, that's all from our group. Thank you for watching.